If I could spell it, I would title this episode Capsaicin.
I don't. What does that mean?
Because the Xbox stuff is getting spicy.
Oh. I literally just thought to myself, this is how the process is supposed to work.
Right.
Right. The notion that Microsoft would be required to bring Call of Duty to the PlayStation forever is duh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's of course. And so the fact that one regulatory body has finally come out and said you need to make this concession and whatever else, yeah, this is how the process works, right? And by saying yes to these things, which of course they're going to, would be insanity. We've already talked about this. Microsoft, this is how you get it approved.
Yep. So, taking a step back for people who don't, I don't know.
Read our minds.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, anyways.
I don't know why you'd be watching this otherwise, but go on.
Whatever. So this morning in the UK, and roughly the same time in the US, not long after, somewhat time around there, the UK said, look, we're going to take a closer look at this acquisition. Like, we looked at it for the top level. It looks like there could be some issues, so we're going to, refer it down to people with bigger magnifying glasses. At the same time, Phil Spencer comes out with a blog post that says, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all those sweet games that everybody likes, and we're going to put them in Game Pass. And that's it. So, along with the PlayStation stuff, all that.
Okay, I was going to say, I think the more crucial component of that announcement was, this is more, yeah, of course. So the UK must have, well, I mean, Microsoft is not unaware of this investigation. They've been required to answer questions, right? So they knew this was coming.
Yep.
And whatever. This is just common sense. I'm actually, well, I don't know, maybe this is just Microsoft letting the process happen, but I'm just surprised they didn't come out on day one and say, PlayStation fans, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
We love you. We don't really, but we love you. We're going to keep those games there. It's stupid not to.
One of the lines in Phil Spencer's post, which I'm probably way overreading this, but I don't care. I do it anyways, that I found particularly interesting. He says, we tend to make Activision Blizzard much loved library of games, including Overwatch. Oh, that's the wrong quote that I pulled out. Hold on. Please, please hold while I pull up the proper quote here. Okay. He says, the promise to open up mobile gaming, creating new distribution opportunities for game developers outside of mobile app stores. I would not surprise me if in their arguments, for why they should be allowed to do this, they're saying, look, Apple has a walled garden. Google Play has a walled garden. If developers want a potential third path to make money outside of these stores, Game Pass and our streaming technology is it. It's an interesting, as long as it's one pillar of their many pillar defense, it's an interesting thought.
Right. I can't imagine it would come to this, but the other thing that kind of crossed my mind with this is whether Microsoft would agree to make whatever games, we'll just say Call of Duty for sake of simplicity, available via Sony's version of Game Pass, which is PlayStation Now or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that Sony was asking for that. I don't know.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that kind of falls in line with this is I bet that when they are arguing in front of these judicial committees, they're going to be like, look at Fortnite. Fortnite stood up for its principles in the App Store. Apple said, no, they're the big whatever Goliath. And we're the David here with Xbox Game Pass, and look what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
well, it doesn't
cloud
help.
gaming, whatever you want to call it.
Sony has paid money to keep developers off of Game Pass. I mean, there's all kinds of arguments to be made there. But like I said, I think the central point, the thing that antitrust regulators would get stuck on, and apparently did, was does Microsoft plan to make these things Xbox platform exclusives? Putting it on Game Pass day one or whatever is a benefit of the Xbox platform, but that doesn't mean it's not going to PC and PlayStation as well. And I think that kind of obviates the argument. I think the rest of it is just noise. I think that's the, but like I said, of course they were always going to do this. I don't understand why they didn't just say this in the beginning.
Yeah, but part of it's also we got to have it in writing. We got to give it in public. We got to give it we can't just assume sort of thing.
It could also be a basic tenet of negotiations, of which I'm not a good negotiator, which is you don't play your hand in the beginning. You make them make the argument, and then you say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We were always going to do this, but whatever. And then that stops the argument.
Yep.
If Microsoft had conceded this without even being challenged, Sony might now be asking for something else, right? Which they would then have to concede. So maybe this is just, like I said, the normal course of things. I don't know. Anyway, interesting. I woke up to this. Well, I was walking the dog and I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like the worst timing. But I texted Laurent and whatever. But anyway, like I said, I ultimately I think this is the way the system's supposed to work. So
Yep. And this is just, we'll see what other bodies say, regulatory bodies.
well, I mean, don't you think this answer? I mean, look, other countries may have different concerns, I guess, but I think all countries would have this concern. Like this would be the primary issue is going to be that competitive thing. Does Microsoft create a new walled garden, literally of exclusives, right? Which is the bigger issue. So, well, we'll see, but
we'll see.
Yeah.
The other spicy thing, keeping in the capsaicin line of thinking here, is ARM is suing Qualcomm over the Nuvia license. Nuvia, I think is how you pronounce it, licensing, which this is pretty significant.
Yeah. I think this is going to be settled and it's going to be fine. The initial reaction, of course, is like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me! Like seriously?" But from ARM's perspective, their entire business is based on this licensing of designs, And they had a license agreement with Nuvia, which was a separate company, and they had a license agreement with Qualcomm. And I'm sure Qualcomm is like, "Well, we bought Nuvia, so now there's only one license agreement." They're like, "Guys, we used to have two streams of income here, and now we only have one." Now, granted, that one is the biggest ARM licensee on earth, and it's clearly what ARM is looking for is more money, right? So Nuvia couldn't have even been 10% of Qualcomm's business, but it's just money, And Qualcomm, semi-infamously, in an illegal sense, has gotten in a lot of trouble with licensing issues in the past, let's say. And so, very clearly they tried to negotiate this privately. Qualcomm kept offering nothing or too little, and ARM finally said, "Well, you're forcing our hand." And it doesn't make sense for ARM to do this to their biggest partner, but it also doesn't make sense for ARM to prevent more ARM devices from coming into the world. A potentially large platform. If this thing is successful, this could become the basis for PCs. Right, yep. Which is a not insignificant market of 200 to 300 million units a year. I mean, today ARM, I bet they don't even sell a million, but the potential is there, and it just doesn't make sense for either party to screw the pooch on this one. So, it was shocking. Anyone's initial reaction should have been the same. Like, wait, what? Like, I mean, what? Because you got to read between the lines a little bit here, like what's going on, and I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to work out fine. But you got to also remember, December every year is their big event, Qualcomm. Yep. They have already telegraphed we're announcing this thing, and we were going to see the first PC. We are, I think, still going to see the first PCs based on this new chipset in January at CES. And so this is like when you put a wrench right into the spokes of the tire, right? Is like this thing's barreling to completion, and they're like, I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't see both sides of this one. I don't understand what ARM's doing.
I think you're probably pretty close that they realize that there's a additional monetization opportunity here.
Yep.
And Qualcomm is like, "Nah, we don't think so." And ARM is like, "We think so." And so now,
if you look up Qualcomm and licensing in a news sense, you'll see lots of issues there on both sides, by the way. I don't know. I don't really follow companies like this, but I guess I would characterize them as a stingy company. So, which, whatever. I mean, you get away with what you can get away with, I guess.
Yep. Sometimes it's cheaper to go to court than it is to, I don't know. So.
I don't know.
Yep. Those are kind of the big ones that have dropped in the past, I don't know, 5 minutes. I'm sure.
Well, actually, so I will say, with the Microsoft Activision thing, like I said, it makes sense. Like there's no like alarm here. The ARM one is interesting because they literally are demanding that Qualcomm throw out all of their designs. Yep. It's like, guys, are you kidding me? This is the biggest seller of chips in the world. Like, what are you talking about? They didn't spend, how much was this thing? 7 billion? What was
Yeah,
do
it
you
was a
remember?
lot.
Some billions on Nubia, I don't remember. But, you don't, what are you doing? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's like, that's it, Apple would have taken this to as the excuse, like, okay, we're going to get rid of these guys. We're going to do our own thing going forward now. And you have to think Qualcomm's like, do we need these guys?
Yeah.
I mean, can we just do our own thing now?
You
I
have
don't
to
know.
think that they've at least thought about it at some point along the way.
Yeah, I will say before I knew the details of it, the one thing that went through my brain is that sometime in the past year, I'd have to look this up. ARM comes out with, they're not really reference designs, but they come out with like chipset designs that others can kind of build off of. So obviously they do the thing for the mobile devices, which is mostly smartphones, but also tablets. I believe they've done, I keep wanting to call them reference designs, but I think they've done designs for like wearables and smaller devices and IoT. They probably have a whole range of things they do. But the thing that they added in the past year-ish was a set of designs for PCs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, Nuvia, well, Qualcomm had tried to adapt smartphone chips for the PCs, and that didn't work very well. Nuvia, I don't think anyone was familiar with anything they were doing, but they were specifically making PC class chipset designs. Which is why Qualcomm bought them. But my initial thought was maybe ARM is arguing like your licenses don't cover PC designs unless you license the PC thing, and like that's an additional license or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. Anyway, it seems it's a little simpler than that. We just want some money,
I mean, don't
more
we
money.
all? I mean, if they want
We
to
want
just
more money.
look, I'll end their argument for about $1 billion. They can just, I'll give them my checking account number, and they can just.
I bet if you, I mean, this may bring, this will never go to court, but if it went to court, you could imagine Qualcomm making an argument like, okay, we know how much we pay you every year, and we know what your revenues are, so we pay you 90% or something. Well, it's probably not 90%.
Yeah, because Nvidia
Samsung
is
makes
probably.
chips and Apple does, of course.
Yeah.
So they're probably 50%, right? Something like that. Like, what happens if we disappear to you? Like, what are you doing? I don't know. I just think it's.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is like Dell. Dell was one. Dell, IBM at the time, PC makers in the 1990s fighting with Microsoft over Windows 95 licenses. It's like, guys, you gotta be part of the same team. Like, that's the point of this partnership,
Team Spicy.